Hi, my name is Alex Duselier Muller, and this is Dressage Schooling Exercises, Episode 3. I call this exercise Clover Leaf Poles. I do realize that my exercises probably could use some more inspired names, but that's not where my creativity lies. This is Pixel. He's a 4-year-old Oldenburg. I bought him as a weanling from Elizabeth Jenner at Gateway Farm in California. He's actually half brother to my FEI horse, and he is registered Oldenburg. He is not a knabstrapper. He's a super easygoing baby. He has a really, really good brain, but like all babies, he struggles a little bit with his energy versus his balance. So I've picked an exercise today to address that. Our exercise today is designed to improve the trot quality and longitudinal suppleness and the lateral suppleness through bend. I've, in this exercise, gone straight to the difficult scaffolding with Pixel, which is to introduce one step of walk. The one step of walk really mimics the feeling of a half halt, so the timing is very similar where, we had a little spook there, where the horse has to sit down into the walk transition and then immediately step under back to the trot transition. So that's my favorite way to introduce the half halt, and you'll see that very shortly. Okay, so here you can see me about to start my exercise. For this exercise, you'll have 4 trot poles laid out. For a full-size horse, I set them at 4.5 feet. For a pony, I set them at 4 feet, and feel free to adjust that. So you'll start through your poles. They should open up the trot just a little bit, and you'll turn left after the poles and go through the chute. So each time you go through the chute, which is the center opening in the middle of the poles, you'll change direction. So you can see here I'm going through the poles, doing 3/4 of a 10-meter circle. And then as I go through the chute, I'm changing bend, changing direction, and doing 3/4 of a 10-meter circle back through the poles. So you can hear me clucking to help him reach for those poles, and he loses his balance just a little bit. So this exercise is really helpful for the babies and the horses that tend to struggle with opening up their stride. It opens up the stride through the trot poles, and then immediately you have to do a pretty sharp turn here and address the bend. And putting them through the chute in the middle of the poles holds you accountable for the size of your circle. So it's virtually impossible to make your circle too big and end up back through that chute. Now that I've said that, somebody will do it. So through this exercise, he starts to kind of get rolling. You can see that the poles open up his stride, and he's starting to figure it out. So the past few changes of bend here have had a little bit more fluidity to them. Oh, that's okay. So I'm not too concerned about that. He just got into the poles a little bit funny, but what I like is that he was fairly clever trying to get himself out reaching. If you haven't worked over cavaletti or over poles much, I should add that the horse should put 1 foot between each pole. And if they're putting 2 feet, then they're not reaching over the pole, so it's not addressing the length of stride. So if your horse is consistently putting 2 feet in between each opening, then your openings are too large. And so I know this exercise is pretty complicated. Just keep remembering that you only change direction as you go through the chute. So if you just keep that in mind, it gets to be a little bit more straightforward. And then I add in the scaffolding. So you can see here I asked him for a walk transition, and he pretty much slammed on the brakes. And I'm having to kind of rev him up and give him a little tap back into the trot. So that mimics the feeling of the half halt pretty accurately, where the horse should rock back and then immediately step under. The half halt is a recycling aid for the energy, not an aid to lose energy. So I'm correcting him here every time I tapped him a little bit. Every time we go to walk and he doesn't immediately respond to my calf going back up to trot, he gets a little tap, because that's the same thing that's going to happen in the half halt if he's doing that in the walk trot transition. There we go. So that transition didn't flow, but he was much quicker to respond. So you can see me address, there we go. You can see me address the balance with the down transition. And then as I go to the up transition, hopefully he'll step under. So that flowed a little bit more. And this is I think my favorite exercise, the one step of walk back to trot, to introduce the idea of a half halt, because it starts to get the horse listening. There, you can see he's much more responsive. Starts to get the horse listening to both the restraining aid and the driving aid. And if you as a rider can get the timing correct, you'll end up having quite an effective half halt. So you can see here that I start to introduce the feeling of changing that one step of walk to an actual half halt. And while it doesn't totally flow, you can see he gets the idea of sitting and then pushing through. Maybe the pushing through part is a little bit weak, but he's a gangly 4-year-old. So we just want the idea. We're always quick to praise. I think you can hear me in the background praising him. And then, as I mentioned last week, I don't drill these exercises. I do them until I feel like they've made a difference and I get out. So he made a really good effort there. He got the idea of the half halt. He was a bit quicker off my leg. And the right bend came a lot easier at the end there than it did at the beginning. So I let him down with a little stretch. This exercise is really useful for babies, but it's also useful for horses who get strong. The use of the 3/4 of a 10-meter circle plus the idea of the half halt is really effective after the trot poles at reminding them that they need to listen to the half halt. So that's it for this week. I hope you found that helpful. As always, please like, subscribe, follow, whatever, and send me your comments. Thank you so much.